So, I really love 500 Days of Summer, but for the longest time I thought there was a right and wrong way to love this movie, and the internet has largely reinforced the same idea. People treat your interpretation of this movie as a moral and intellectual test. Did you side with Tom? If so, you have bad media literacy and you don't understand this movie you claim to love. Unlike us enlightened folk, including Joseph Gordon-Levitt himself, who realized Summer is completely innocent and Tom was always the problem. I've done the same exact thing on my channel, defending Summer against the Manic Pixie Dream Girl label and giving Tom his lashings. But I'm at a point now where I've truly lost count of how many times I've watched this movie. And maybe my most recent rewatch was one too many and has sent me into a psychosis that will analyze this film way past the point of reason. But I truly believe everyone is misreading 500 Days of Summer on some level, because there are endless layers to this movie. So I want to take you on the journey I've been on. And the most efficient way I can think of doing that is through the iceberg model, starting with the most surface level readings of the movie and going deeper and deeper into its tropes, structure, and themes with the central questions of who was in the wrong and how can what seems like such a straightforward story have so many wildly different interpretations. Let's descend through the 500 Days of Summer iceberg. Tier 1, Summer is the villain. This is what is considered by many to be the most surface level reading of the movie, where most first time viewers land. Before we get into why they are wrong, let's explain why they land here in the first place. Using all these tropes as a benchmark, 500 Days of Summer is a deconstruction of the romantic comedy. It sets up all the appropriate expectations of the genre and then tears them apart. The movie is very upfront about that. The narrator starts by claiming that this is a story of boy meets girl, the essential first step to any rom-com. He then goes on to explain that our protagonist, Tom, is a hopeless romantic who grew up believing that he'd never truly be happy until the day he met the one. The one true love is this idea prevalent in fairy tales that somewhere out there is this one perfect specimen who is your ultimate match, and no one else will do. When you consider the fact that rom-coms are essentially fairy tales for adults, of course the one true love is a staple of the genre as well. We then learn that the girl, Summer, does not share this belief. Due to her parents' divorce, she became an emotionally unavailable girl, able to cut someone off and not feel a thing. This is still in line with conventions because rom-coms love this too. It immediately sets up an opposites attract type scenario, where the hopeless romantic eventually convinces the other to believe in love. Tom sees Summer and falls in love at first sight. Mind you, all these tropes are projected in just 70 seconds of the movie. 70 seconds. And then we are hit with a warning. This is not a love story. A standard rom-com would follow the format of boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back again. But we are immediately told that the final, essential step to the rom-com does not happen. Despite this warning, viewers can very easily get emotionally invested in this relationship working out in the end, because it nails the depiction of all the initial love story tropes, like the meet cute. The meet cute is an effective way to quickly introduce two characters and tie this invisible ribbon around them, instantly creating a spark between them that will be carried throughout the story. They are typically either awkward or embarrassing, but in an adorable way. For Tom, this happens on day 4. Summer enters the elevator and you can see a slight moment of excitement in him, which he quickly suppresses due to claims from his friend that she's the type of girl who would never show interest in him. He looks away and actively puts on a show to ignore her. Summer hears the music playing in his headphones, smiles and says, "The Smiths?" Tom, pretending not to hear or care, gives her an unenthusiastic wave, but Summer keeps going, telling him she loves the Smiths, she sings a little, and then compliments his taste in music. Then she leaves. And just like that, there's this invisible ribbon tied around them.
So that clip always bothers me because I actually couldn't hear the song through the headphones like when we were shooting it, and no one else noticed but me, and I'm like, I'm singing in a different key, like I should have done that in ADR, and everyone was like, what? Oh, I didn't notice that. It drives me absolutely crazy every single time.
Zooey Deschanel hates her singing here because, according to her, she's singing off key and only she noticed. But funnily enough, what she considers a mistake just makes the scene even stronger. In the screenplay, Tom is the awkward one, trying to pretend he doesn't care. But in the movie, both of them do this dance really well, and it makes for a perfect meet cute. Awkward, simple, adorable, and very effective. 500 Days of Summer maintains this effectiveness through all the typical love story beats. It nails the tension, the passion at first kiss, the chemistry. All the hallmarks of a perfect rom-com are there, and all so very well done that you get emotionally invested in this relationship. Yet all these tropes are also loudly called out and deconstructed just as quickly as they are introduced. Tom's little sister Rachel, who serves as the voice of reason in this movie, tells him on day 11 that just because she likes the same bizarro music he does, doesn't make her his soulmate. The meet cute is shut down again on day 22 when Tom tries to get Summer's attention by playing the Smiths, only for her to just walk right past him. So while 101 Dalmatians and pretty much every other meet cute uses it to signal a moment of fate, stars colliding, here, we and Tom himself are warned not to read too much into this one encounter, no matter how convincing you find that spark to be. Back to chemistry. The chemistry they show on their dates, whether it's shopping in IKEA, the record store, or going to a movie, are all recreated again in a negative light, taking away the illusion that strong chemistry automatically means eternal compatibility. A true rom-com would never do that. Scenes that show romance and chemistry are precious and can't be tampered with. Imagine if Heath Ledger attempted to serenade Julia Stiles with Can't Take My Eyes Off of You for a second time, and it just looking pathetic and sad. Not happening, that scene is too precious. In a rom-com, this Ringo Starr inside joke, this elevator, and this IKEA would be treated as sacred spaces. So how does any of this lead back to the idea that Summer is the villain? Well, for casual viewers purely invested in their desire to see this relationship work out, these moments aren't analyzed as a deconstruction. They are seen as a betrayal of the setup. All they know is that there's an obstacle to things working out the way they are supposed to, with us getting the happily ever after ending. And that obstacle to them clearly isn't our protagonist Tom. He's siding with these ideas, treating the meet cute as destiny, the IKEA as sacred. He's a lover boy fighting to make it work, and so it must be Summer's fault. After all, she's the emotionally unavailable girl who did not fulfill her rom-com duty of changing for him. Tom tried to make the chemistry eternal, but she's the one who stopped laughing at their inside jokes or role-playing with him. Tom tried to get her back. She's the one who shut him down. Summer gets the blame. It's funny that the movie being so good at deconstructing the rom-com is also the primary reason why someone would walk away from it wanting to assign blame on the easiest target. If all these moments on the left weren't so well done, they wouldn't be so hurt when we got to the deconstruction. And that hurt, one which probably causes them to think of their own past heartbreaks that also did not follow the rom-com format, causes them to take the easy way out and villainize Summer, like they villainize their exes. Instead of her being the projection of your soulmate, as she would in a rom-com, she becomes the projection of that person who broke your heart. However, while I disagree with them thinking of Summer in such simplistic terms, I think we also must acknowledge that the movie does nudge them in that direction in a major way. The most brutal deconstruction comes after the boy loses the girl, and the prospect of him getting her back, a boombox moment, is dangled right in front of you. Summer and Tom haven't seen each other in a while, but reunite at a friend's wedding. They spend the entire time there together, and not in a casual sense. They are clearly flirting, complimenting each other, reminiscing, and slow dancing. Summer then invites him to a party she's hosting at her place, and both Tom and the audience are anticipating a boombox moment. They have no reason to suspect the disaster that's about to unfold, because it turns out all of this was happening while Summer was in a serious relationship with someone else, something she never thought to inform Tom about. So he builds up an expectation for how the party will go. An expectation which I don't think he's wrong to have formed. Sure, it's a bit fantastical, but he was missing a crucial piece of information that would have tempered his expectations dramatically. Because when he gets there, the reality is the complete opposite. He's awkward and alone, and then gets blindsided by her engagement. You cannot reasonably defend Summer for this, because even Summer herself says it was wrong.
You should have told me.
And you can see it on her face that she knows it was wrong. There is no chance that the thought of telling him never once crossed her mind, but she didn't. This is what you call leading someone on. Tom's next question is, so why did you dance with me? And Summer gives a brutally honest answer that pretty much summarizes their dynamic for people in this tier.
Because I wanted to.
Because I wanted to. Unlike the other deconstructions that focus on flipping the genre, this one just reflects poorly on Summer and is where the idea that she's in the wrong gets nailed into the audience's head. Because I wanted to means that the way Summer moved in their relationship was governed by what she wanted on any given day, with little consideration for the impact it would have on Tom. She's the one depicted as hot and cold, which isn't fun to be on the receiving end of if you've ever experienced it. So yeah, people are going to see her as the villain. But remember, we are just on the surface. So let's delve deeper and now turn a critical eye onto Tom. Tier 2, Tom is the problem. This is the tier where the audience does some deconstructing of their own. Just because Tom is our protagonist doesn't make him a victim who is immune to scrutiny. In fact, he can be the villain of his own story. The best place to start is with a trope that has haunted this movie since it came out, the manic pixie dream girl. Coined by film critic Nathan Rabin after watching Garden State, the manic pixie dream girl is a quirky, whimsical, effortlessly beautiful female character who exists purely to shake up the life of a brooding male protagonist. She teaches him to embrace life, she revitalizes him, she fixes him. It's a trope that many people immediately attach onto Summer. And while these people are completely wrong, we first have to establish why she gets that label to begin with, because to be fair, on paper, she does meet a lot of the criteria. Character introduction. First impressions are everything, and character introductions are no exception. They are meant to leave a lasting impression. Summer's character introduction is almost aggressively curated to signal that she's a manic pixie dream girl. It's a quirky black and white film reel that condenses her into random traits, like how many double takes she averages in a day. She dresses in a way that's both effortless and stylized. She doesn't speak during this section, she just flirts with the camera. The most important takeaway from this introduction has nothing to do with her personality, but how magnetic she is to all men. If you compare that with a character like Tiffany in Silver Linings Playbook,
No, how did he die? I just said.
How did who die?
sure, she comes into the life of a brooding male protagonist, and yes, she definitely comes across as quirky in her introduction, but the scene itself is pretty mundane and you aren't being told how you should feel about her. The draw comes from wanting to learn more about her as a person. And as the movie progresses, we learn almost just as much about her as we do Bradley Cooper's character. Here you can see the difference between a manic pixie dream girl and, well, a girl that's just manic. Telling you how you should feel about Summer rather than letting you find out yourself through the course of the story leads us to the next point, flat characters.
We barely even really got to know Summer. I mean, we really saw her from afar. She's very objectified. Instead of being a human being for connection, she's like a collection of attributes. Oh, she has the kind of style I like.
Now look, that character introduction is fun and not meant to be taken so seriously. But truthfully, the rest of the movie itself doesn't do much to develop Summer beyond this. We know so little about her, and it's almost as if the tiny bits of information we do get are just more quirky factoids that can be added to her film reel. Her exes, her taste in music, film, art, and what she grew up watching, which also just so happens to be perfectly aligned with Tom. And speaking of Tom, with him, we get to spend time with his friends, even when he's not around. We spend time with his sister. We get to hear his internal monologue at different points. He feels like a real person with an interior life. The same can't be said for Summer. We don't get to actually see her outside of Tom. It's as if she only exists when he's in the room, with no life outside of what he can observe. She does get to speak to the camera alone in a deleted scene, and even then you learn absolutely nothing about her from it.
I think that my feelings on the topic have been covered. Can we talk about something else?
And finally, another important element of the manic pixie dream girl is that she is a catalyst for change. Tom's dream of being an architect is present throughout the movie, and it's clear he's stuck in an unrewarding job at a greeting card company that doesn't match up to his talent and passion for architecture. And what is it that pushes him out of this? Summer. Some might argue that he came to this decision by himself, since Summer was out of his life at this point, but I completely disagree. The only character in the movie that nudges him regarding his career is Summer. We learn about his passion for architecture because she is the one that gets him to open up about it. When they see each other after a while, she asks,
You still working for Vance?
Yeah.
To her, it's a casual question, but the slight tone of surprise in her voice, surprise that he would still be working there, coupled with the blatant shame on Tom's face when he answers yes, is just another nudge pushing him to leave. The final nudge comes with the expectations versus reality scene where Tom is being asked the dreaded "what do you do" question. After he answers, Summer adds that he could become a great architect if he wanted to.
Tom could be a really great architect if he wanted to be.
Tom responds with a self-deprecating joke.
I guess I just figured, why make something disposable, like a building, when you can make something that lasts forever, like a greeting card?
There's just this air of sadness there, which I will unpack in depth later on because it's so good. But my point is just, it's only Summer that does this. It's only her that sees him being stagnant. It's only her that pushes him. Not even his little sister, the voice of reason, does this. His experience with Summer broke him, but also fixed him, and the fixing fits the manic pixie dream girl job description. With all that being said, here's how Summer getting this label placed on her is actually the best reasoning we have for Tom being the problem. Because none of what I've said is Summer's fault. It's not her fault she comes across as flat. Her characterization is done through the story, a story which is told through Tom's head. His memories, his viewpoint, his narrative, all of which are unreliable because Tom is an unreliable narrator. An unreliable narrator is one who cannot be trusted because their credibility is compromised. Now, 500 Days of Summer does have an actual narrator who I do believe is trustworthy and gives us objective, factual information about the story. But unreliable narrators can extend to second and third person as well. And given that the entire story is filtered through Tom's memories, these are his title cards shown through his eyes, he becomes a narrator of sorts. One who we know from the very beginning cannot be trusted to recount events objectively. The opening minute tells us that his outlook on love and destiny is based on his total misreading of the movie The Graduate. When Benjamin and Elaine escape on a bus, Tom sees a perfect romantic fairy tale ending, when in reality, the final shot of the movie shows us that the initial euphoria the couple experiences quickly fades into doubt and uncertainty. It is a cynical ending. Towards the end of 500 Days of Summer, when we are finally shown the day right before the breakup, they go watch the movie together and Summer sobs at the ending, not just because she sees the true cynicism in the scene, but because she applies it to her own life and realizes that their relationship, which was once euphoric, is now headed to a similarly unhappy conclusion. Tom looks at her and is completely puzzled by her reaction. So the very opening of the movie is telling you that Tom incorrectly believes his life will play out like a romantic comedy, and that he will be incapable of seeing otherwise. This is a warning that all the days we see from their relationship are clouded by his bias. Take the meet cute for example. In Tier 1 I talked about the scene itself, its purpose in romance stories and how it got deconstructed here. But that's only surface level. What people in that tier need to do is actually observe what Tom is doing to Summer as a person. A true meet cute has both parties as equals in the moment. Both feel the spark, both place emphasis on the moment as something bigger. Here it's just Tom doing that. He decides in that moment that just because she likes the Smiths, she's his soulmate. Therefore, all the expectations of what meeting the one is meant to do to his life are immediately placed on her. Now imagine you're Summer. You're going home, you're in an elevator with a coworker you barely know yet. You hear him listening to a band you like, so you compliment his taste in music, and then you leave. A nice friendly interaction, but nothing major. Then you find out that this person views this moment as fate. He's decided that because of this little interaction, you are his one true love. That sounds insane, right? People might say Summer was feeling this spark too, and it's not that I entirely disagree. She likes him. But the movie also tells you repeatedly after this that their interaction was not this grand moment of destiny to her. The Smiths doesn't make her stop in her tracks, and she shows little interest in him. When his sister is calling him out on this, she's combating Tom's flawed thinking and in a way also defending Summer.
That doesn't make her your soulmate, Tom.
That doesn't make her yours only. Tom has decided that this girl is his only because he's projected his ideology of true love's destiny onto her. Summer comes across as a manic pixie dream girl because that is the purpose she serves in his mind. He is the one who sees her as nothing but a quirky, ethereal person who came into his life to make him happy. And just because he frames her as such through his unreliable recounting of their relationship does not mean that this is who she is. The clearest confirmation of Tom's unreliability comes with how the start of the movie mirrors the end. On day 290, Rachel rushes over to Tom's house because he's freaking out over his breakup. His sister asks him to tell her what happened, and all he says was that things were going so well, and all of a sudden she said,
I think we should stop seeing each other.
Just like that?
Just like that.
just like that. Jump to day 450 where Rachel tells him to revisit his memories and not just look back at the highlights, but the full picture. It's only at this point do we fully see the extent to which Tom was fabricating how the breakup happened. Summer didn't suddenly switch up on him. The magic was fading for a while. She was unhappy, cold, and distant before breaking up with him, and he couldn't see it. So going back to this idea that Summer is a flat character, of course she comes across that way. Tom's memories aren't showing us her depth. That doesn't mean she didn't have any. Manic Pixie Dream Girls are supposed to be fun rays of sunshine. They can't be sad, at least not this kind of sadness that Summer was feeling. He looked at her and thought making the same jokes that once made her laugh, going on the same dates that they once enjoyed, or getting pancakes would fix everything. Tom is clueless and an unreliable narrator because Summer wasn't flat. He just wasn't seeing her as a person. Loving a shadow. Loving a shadow is a trope where people enter a romantic relationship not from the basis of genuinely getting to know someone for who they are, but by already having a figure in mind and then projecting that onto them, regardless of how far off the figure you're seeking actually matches with reality. Tom is honestly a male version of Anna from Frozen and Sansa from Game of Thrones. In Frozen, Anna goes from being best friends with her sister to being cut off from her completely, then loses her parents. She desperately needs affection and so immediately latches onto Hans as her Prince Charming. That will pull her out of this emotional isolation. It's not about getting to know him.
You can't marry a man you just met. You can if it's true love.
As Elsa says, she didn't even give herself time to. But Anna doesn't care. All she needed was a meet cute and a song, and she fell in love with the shadow. Sansa has equally bought into the fairy tale fantasy of marrying Prince Charming. Her desire to marry such a figure was not born out of trauma like Anna, but childhood naivete and heavy conditioning. She was raised to be a lady, told stories and learned songs about handsome knights and princes. She was extremely sheltered in Winterfell, super privileged, and hadn't lived enough to learn that life, especially in Westeros, doesn't play out as simply as in the stories she was told. So when Joffrey comes along, she thinks his beauty and status as a prince must surely mean he ticks all the other boxes, that he's good, strong, and brave. Evidence pointing to the contrary is immediate. The audience can see how naive she is. But for a long, long while, Sansa is willing to overlook all of this just so she can continue the fantasy, continue loving the shadow. It takes him executing her father to snap her out of it. Tom is no different to them. Just swap the desire for a Prince Charming to that of a manic pixie dream girl. No labels. Summer sets the boundary repeatedly. She tells him so many times who she is. She says that she isn't looking for anything serious, that she doesn't believe in love or destiny. All of this completely goes against his fantasy, meaning that she's not the perfect match. But he ignores them, just like Sansa does, so he can maintain the fantasy, maintain the idea of her. He convinces himself that this is just a temporary resistance phase that comes before the big romantic breakthrough where the emotionally unavailable girl realizes she was wrong all along. If Tom approached Summer from the genuine standpoint of wanting to get to know her for who she was, not with the preconceived manic pixie dream girl in mind, then the chances of heartbreak would have been greatly reduced, because then he could stop things from escalating. Summer was honest, and that's all anyone should be when dating. Tom wasn't honest. She asked him if nothing serious was okay, and he said yes, knowing damn well that it wasn't okay. That serious is exactly what he was seeking. Summer did her part, and from this point on, the onus was on Tom to either end things right there and then, or accept that the relationship would never be serious, and therefore also accept that he has no right to feel angry, hurt, or blindsided when it ends. And the same goes for the audience. It's understandable why people in this tier don't just defend Summer, they hate Tom. The self-victimization and placing himself in the dogged nice guy trope is pathetic. The nice guy, sensitive, caring, yet all the effort he makes isn't appreciated. We are supposed to pity him and place the onus on the girl to come to her senses and see that a nice guy like him is exactly what she needs. When another man flirts with Summer at the bar, Tom intervenes on her behalf even though she's doing a good enough job of telling him on her own that she isn't interested. Tom escalates the situation and gets into a physical fight. He expects this to impress Summer. He's gloating about this bar fight as they walk into her apartment and doesn't see how off-putting she finds it until she calls him out on it. This is when Tom reveals what many girls will attest to as the true nature of nice guys when they don't get their way. He lashes out, tells her that actually it doesn't matter that she doesn't want a label because he does, and he forcefully places one on her.
You're not the only one that gets a say in this. I do too. And I say we're a couple. God damn it.
Only to later retract and say, once again, that he's fine without a label. So, in summary,
she never cheated on you?
No, never.
She ever take advantage of you in any way?
No.
And she told you up front that she didn't want a boyfriend?
Yeah.
But if you think all this is bad, let's go a little deeper and examine just how broken Tom might be as a person. More broken than even the people in this tier realize. Tier 3, Tom is actually insane. Joseph Gordon-Levitt has tweeted, "It's mostly Tom's fault. He's projecting, he's not listening, he's selfish. Luckily, he grows by the end." This tier will break down the last part of that statement, which I strongly believe is false. After he gets his life together, Tom goes for a job interview, and sitting across from him is a girl called Autumn. She recognizes Tom, but he doesn't recognize her. She tells him that she's seen him at the park, and Tom is shocked. It's his favorite spot in the city, but he's never seen her there. To which she replies with one of my favorite lines in the movie.
You must not have been looking.
You must not have been looking. Single target sexuality, a trope where the character is in love with one person and one person only. It differs from the one true love trope because that idea is often backed up in the fairy tale. It is an inherent truth of that world. Single target sexuality, on the other hand, is a character fault. They are out of step with reality. The reality of life is there are just way too many people on Earth for you to truly believe there's only one match for you. There are many people you could fall in love with. It's just a matter of whether you're lucky enough to meet one of them or not. But letting your life be so consumed with the idea that you can only be with this one specific person, no matter what, is unhealthy. For people in Tier 1, this ending scene provides hope and relief, because a surface level reading of it would be to say, oh, so the one true love does exist, and it's her, and now the real love story can start. They would focus on the romance of it all. But this line, "You must not have been looking," I think so clearly summarizes what people in Tier 2 know, that this movie is an indictment on Tom. He had options. There are other women in this city that he can connect with, but his singular, obsessive focus on Summer, despite the fact that she wasn't right for him, blinded him from seeing anyone else, even when they were right there the whole time. But I've brought us a tier lower because the most overlooked aspect of this scene is that Tom has learned nothing. When he hears "you must not have been looking," he doesn't recognize this as a personal fault. The narrator confirms for us that Tom instead chooses to focus on the cosmic significance of the simple fact that she frequents his favorite spot in the city. Does this sound familiar?
Just some cute girl likes the same bizarro crap you do? That doesn't make her your soulmate, Tom.
As wholesome as it seems, the ending of 500 Days of Summer is not a relief. It's not telling you that he's found the one, and everything will be okay. It is a here we go again looping narrative. A trope where the ending basically tells you that the events that led to the story are going to loop back and tell a very similar story again. You don't need to see it play out because they've already given you enough information to know how it will. In Jumanji, it's as simple as a shot of the board game lying on the beach, partially buried in the sand, and two girls hearing the drum beats as they walk towards it. You might say that we aren't given enough information to show us that this is a looping narrative, that maybe Tom and Autumn are soulmates and get married and spend the rest of their lives together. Maybe Tom has thousands of days of Autumn. I disagree. I think we do have enough information to back up a looping narrative. Tom meets Autumn in almost the exact same circumstances he met Summer, in a professional setting over something mundane sparked by a small coincidence that he assigns great cosmic significance to. Don't get me wrong, it's a very charming scene, but so is the elevator scene. And just like there, Autumn isn't aware of the significance Tom is placing on this moment. She doesn't know he's been obsessing over a girl called Summer for the past 500 days, and therefore her name is pointing to some destiny for him. She doesn't know that liking the same spot as him may have led him to already deciding that she's the one to finally bring him true happiness. She just flirted a bit with the guy sitting next to her and then agreed to a date. You can say this is a ridiculous, overly cynical read, but this is the same movie that references the ending to The Graduate twice. I think a cynical read is correct. It's just hidden beneath all these things like chemistry and coincidence that this very movie has told you not to get carried away with. Then there's the fact that this is the moment the title card switches from day 500 back to 1. It's notable that day 500 wasn't the day he had a final conversation with Summer. From a traditional character arc perspective, this is where the story resolves. Tom gets closure and even wishes her happiness, and a healed version of him can walk away wiser and more grounded. There are many reasons why that should have been day 500, but the choice to make that a random day 488 and instead have day 500 also be day 1 of Autumn is deliberate. Summer was still there, and he just redirected his romantic fantasy onto someone new. He didn't actually internalize what went wrong. Hearing that her name is Autumn solidified the destiny idea for him. Yes, of course, the name is a fun wink and poetic flourish, but besides it serving as evidence that Tom will always side with believing in destiny over coincidence, there's also the fact that these women are named after seasons. One leading into the other just points to a cycle. If there's an autumn, there's probably a winter, and then maybe a spring too, metaphorically, of course. The first thing Rachel hears when she's rushing to Tom's aid after the breakup is,
We know who else to call. It's Amanda Heller all over again.
It's Amanda Heller all over again. There's also a deleted scene where Tom is having dinner with his sister and mother, and Rachel immediately says,
He met a girl.
Yeah?
Yeah.
His mother excitedly replies with, yeah, and his sister disappointedly responds with, yeah. Like she knows how it's going to unfold, because this is an ongoing cycle for Tom. Seasons rotate, and Tom will cycle through women like seasons if he never actually internalizes what his experience with Summer should have taught him. Tier 4, we're all very naive for picking sides. Despite all that I've said, I do have to admit that I've grown sick of the takes in the tiers above and have now settled here. If you're watching 500 Days of Summer from the angle of picking a side, I'm not going to say that you're watching it wrong, but I am going to say that this is such a boring way to watch it. The theme of this tier is the blame game, and how playing it does a disservice to the story. I'll do it by zooming in mostly on just one specific day of their relationship and peeling back every single layer until people are able to see that the richness of this story doesn't come from villainizing either of them, but instead from caring for both of them and viewing their relationship as a singular, tragically beautiful story about love. Day 118. On my first viewing many years ago, this is the point when I realized that this movie is next level. The day starts with Tom going to his little sister for advice. He's reached a stage in his relationship with Summer where they are truly connecting, beyond just having fun. In situationships, this is the dreaded what are we stage.
So what are you exactly?
I don't know.
Are you her boyfriend?
It's not that simple. Sure it is.
Where everyone around you is asking if you're a couple, because you're acting like one in all ways except the label. Tom wants to ask, but is afraid of rocking the boat. Rachel, knowing that a definitive answer is what Tom needs, tells him to quit being a coward and just ask her.
It's easy, Tom. Just don't be a pussy.
Cut to them in the car. Summer sees that something is bothering him and asks if he's okay. His initial instinct is to say that he's fine, to not rock the boat. But to her credit, Summer gently pries for him to be honest. And to his credit, Tom takes his sister's advice and asks,
What are we, what's going on here with us?
To which Summer replies with,
I don't know. I'm happy. Aren't you happy?
I'm going to take this very simple line and show you the levels at play here that demonstrate that this movie has way more depth to it than the simplistic blame game people are playing in the tiers above. The Summer is innocent crowd tend to gloss over the scene because a huge basis for the argument that she's done nothing wrong is that she's made things clear to him from the start. But let's compare what Summer says here to what she says on day 34 in the IKEA. Their chemistry is on fire, so she rightly recognizes that this is a moment to pause and be clear with him about her intentions.
I'm not really looking for anything serious. Is that okay?
I'm not looking for anything serious. Is that okay? Here she gives a clear, definitive statement about her boundaries, and then she asks him from the most neutral standpoint possible whether he is okay with that. Tom says yes, and even then, Summer still asks for confirmation.
You sure?
Yeah, like, casual. Right? Take it slow.
In this moment, it's fully on Tom. But now we're at day 118. It's been a while, and now Tom is the one recognizing that they need to pause and check in again about what this relationship is. Summer says, I don't know. The definitive statement has changed to a question mark. So instead of giving clarity like people in tier 2 claim she does throughout the movie, it's open-ended. And when you leave things open for someone who is clearly falling in love with you, you can't be shocked when they continue to go down that path, when they choose to see the optimism in the question mark. But even more so, the second part where she answers, I'm happy, aren't you happy, is an even worse thing to do in this situation. Is that okay is a neutral, straightforward question where Summer is inquiring about how he feels, and Tom is given the space to answer in whatever way he wants to. She is doing an excellent job communicating, and the onus is on him to be honest. But with, I'm happy, aren't you happy, that's not neutral. First of all, it's shifting the focus from clarity about their relationship to something else. Of course Tom is happy, and of course she is too. That's not what he was asking, and Summer knows it. Secondly, aren't you happy is a leading question that boxes him into a yes and no. Of course he'll say yes because he is happy to be with her. And when he answers, you'll notice that instead of her asking, are you sure, like she did before, which would give him the space to elaborate on what's bothering him, she simply ends it there with good.
Good.
Because she doesn't want to have the conversation. She shifted his focus away from what he needed in that moment, and she's shutting it down. The voice of reason pushed Tom in the right direction. He listened. It's Summer that pulled him away. And she does it in such an adorable way. Look, Summer is allowed to not know what the relationship is. She's allowed to change from nothing serious to, I don't know, maybe. But this is where she really starts becoming reckless with Tom's feelings. She doesn't ask, are you okay with this being open-ended? She doesn't ask, what do you want? I don't care if it's casual, serious, friends with benefits, situationship, whatever. As a human, you have a responsibility to consider other people's feelings as well as your own. IKEA Summer is one who, from experience, understands that responsibility, which is why she handled that so well. But now she's suddenly thrown those communication skills out the window. I know it sounds like I'm still playing the blame game, and that would be the case if I just stopped here. But I find this to be the sweetest, most heartbreaking scene in the movie, and that only comes from caring for Summer as well in this moment, and seeing things from her perspective. We see her go from a woman who on day 28 said she doesn't believe in love, to 109, a day in which the narrator tells us changed everything for them. That on this day, Summer finally lets down her wall of distance, space, and casual. That very few had been invited into her world, and yet here Tom was, because she wanted him there. She then tells Tom about a recurring dream she has, one that actually gets to the heart of who she is as a person. I dream about flying. Not really flying, more like floating. Like it starts out, I'm running really, really fast, and then the terrain gets all rocky and steep, but I don't slow down. I just climb higher with every stride. Before I know it, I'm floating. I'm going so fast, my feet don't even touch the ground. I'm up in the air, and I don't know, free. It's this incredible feeling. But then I look down, and the minute I do, everything changes. There I am. I'm floating high above the earth. Nothing can touch me, right? I'm free and I'm safe and it hits me, just like that, I'm completely and utterly alone.
And then I wake up.
Summer's dream has 3 distinct phases. The first is running, which signifies control. The terrain is rocky and steep, but it doesn't affect her. She keeps climbing higher. She's saying that even when things get difficult, she can maintain control. Running leads to flying. This obviously represents freedom. It's clear from the beginning that Summer values her independence, which is why she resists labels and doesn't want to be tied down. She wants freedom. She wants to feel like she's flying. But this incredible feeling is interrupted by the final step, looking down and realizing she's alone. This represents isolation. This is the heart of the dream, and it's notable that her waking up moment isn't because she gets knocked down. She doesn't lose her ability to fly. She simply changes her perspective on freedom. At first, being untethered feels exhilarating, but then it becomes isolating. The same conditions that make her feel free also make her feel alone. Tom rightly recognizes that this is a moment of sharing that one has to earn. He listens to her open up, and just as he questions whether anyone had heard about this dream, she says,
I've never told anybody that before.
This is something she keeps to herself because it's too deep. It reveals that she's aware of the contradiction, aware that even though she confidently states that she doesn't believe in love and doesn't want anything serious, maybe she's not as set in stone with those beliefs as she seems. Hugely important scene in the context of their relationship. They're going deeper, and this is real connection, real intimacy that goes far beyond role-playing in an IKEA. I've never told anyone that before. It's confirmation that this isn't just any other relationship to Summer. This is new territory for her. So I'm sorry, but for anyone who even tries to say they weren't even in a relationship, I think you're wrong. An official label isn't needed to see this connection for what it is. The car scene is just 9 days after this. 9 days. She's not communicating as well because she's also feeling a lot of things that she's trying to process. Just because we don't see it the way we do with Tom when he vents to his sister or friends or gives his inner monologue, doesn't mean it's not happening. Summer thought she wanted freedom and control in the form of a casual relationship, and yet here she is having an experience with someone that is transcending casual, and she's happy. It's funny because people in Tier 1 have this problem of not really seeing Summer as a normal, complicated person. They would interpret this as her manipulating him or leading him on by giving a non-answer. And then people in Tiers 2 and 3 have this problem where, in their attempts to defend Summer, they end up creating this evil caricature of Tom and refuse to see him as a normal and complicated person. They would interpret this as purely his responsibility to end things if he's not okay with no labels. As if these two people aren't experiencing something real. When you play the blame game like this, you're depriving yourself of seeing that the real depth to the movie comes from really seeing them both as people. I don't know how else to put it. Relationships can be messy. When things fall apart, it's so easy to look back and say, well, you should have said these exact words at this exact moment. It's easy to reduce anyone to a one-dimensional character in your life story. But when you're actually in those moments, both of you feeling a million different things at once, sometimes I'm happy, aren't you happy, is all you know to say. Both of them are struggling with how to navigate this. Both of them care about each other. Both of them are messing up. And that's what makes it feel so real and so beautiful. But we're not done pulling back the layers of this one day. While all this is happening, there's a Carla Bruni song playing in the car. As Summer flirts her way out of the conversation and pulls Tom back into the thrill of their fling, the music gets louder. The lyrics are in French, but here's a translation of the verse that plays. I am told that destiny is making fun of us, that it doesn't give us anything and promises us everything. It appears that happiness is within reach, so we reach out and we end up going crazy. Summer redirects their conversation to their happiness. The idea that happiness is within reach is what drives them both forward. It's what keeps Tom from saying, actually, I need commitment, and walking away. And it's what keeps Summer from shutting things down completely. But these two people, despite all the fun they are having, are fundamentally misaligned. And that's where the madness comes in, because they are destined to fail as a couple. And the lyrics aren't assigning blame to either of them for the craziness that comes. The word us and we are used multiple times. It's both of them choosing to reach out. And if anyone is to blame, it's destiny. Destiny, that thing Tom believes in, is mocking them, promising that everything will fall into place if they just follow the feeling. But the idea of destiny is a lie. They think their happiness is the promise of something meaningful and long-lasting, but that feeling doesn't actually guarantee anything in reality. Such a beautiful and heartbreaking scene. How can anyone see this nuance and think pointing fingers at either of them is the more interesting take? This is a beautiful telling of a story about two people who aren't meant for each other, but nevertheless they meet and they connect and they run along with that feeling, which leads to heartbreak on both ends. A story about real love that unfortunately doesn't work out. That's the story of Summer and Tom, not the blame game. Tier 5, the final tier, love is a disease.
So much suffering.
Even though I've landed in a place where I'm happy with my reading of the film, that 500 Days of Summer is taking the love story format, ripping it apart and giving it back to us in a way that's human, real, and we aren't supposed to pick sides. There are still elements of this movie that don't sit right with me because they contradict all this analysis I've been doing. The seasonal and color motifs are one of them. Now, these aren't obscure topics when it comes to analyzing this movie. It's a common discussion point, but usually people use it as evidence to explain the true meaning of the film, and I'm going to instead use it as evidence of the film's confusion. Summer is associated with the color blue. She has blue eyes, an extremely blue wardrobe, from blue ribbons to blue dresses. Her apartment is covered in blue wallpaper. The season she's named after is associated with blue skies, but blue can also be associated with cold, which is fitting for an emotionally distant girl. Blue is the perfect color to represent summer. Tom, on the other hand, is associated with brown, grey, or earthy tones. Like Summer, it is most noticeable with his wardrobe, but his eyes are brown, his apartment is brown, and even the people closest to him are dressed in brown too. It's a very clear and deliberate contrast with Summer, one you can't ignore once you see it. This is supposed to make them visually coded as different and incompatible, a disconnect between them that goes beyond their different wants and needs. This color motif is most obvious after Tom and Summer first spend the night together. He's on cloud 9 and dances through the streets to "You Make My Dreams Come True." All the dancers surrounding him are dressed in blue. He's visited by an animated blue bird, which represents the blue bird of happiness. The symbol of a blue bird as a sign predicting happiness is found in many cultures and dates back thousands of years. But through this entire sequence, Tom is still in his same earthy tones. He enters Summer's blue world, but he's out of place there. The scene then immediately cuts to his unhappiness, shutting down the fortune-telling of the blue bird, as the movie does with so many tropes. In a deleted scene, this exact sequence plays out for a second time, but in a very negative way, with him clashing with all the extras, including the blue bird of happiness, who ends up defecating on him. From color alone, the movie is telling you they are not meant for each other. So when we get to the final scene of the movie, where Tom meets a girl called Autumn, a season associated with the browning of leaves, she has brown eyes, brown hair, and just look at what she's wearing, completely aligned with Tom. If Tom and Summer's colors are meant to visualize a mismatch, which it obviously is, then this is supposed to visualize a perfect match, which is very rom-com coded and circling back to the exact romantic logic that the film is critiquing. The confusion lies in the fact that when I spoke earlier about this ending being a looping narrative where Tom has learned nothing, I did so because that reading of it perfectly aligns with the thesis of the movie, that it's not a love story but a deconstruction of the love stories we're typically told. I could have placed the looping narrative here, but I didn't because it seems too obvious to be this deep into the iceberg. Yet, the color motif, something the director put a ton of effort in to have it baked into the entire movie, only works to confirm the most surface level reading of this ending, that it's a happy one. That he actually did meet the one, which is so out of step with a movie that is otherwise really committed to deconstructing exactly this idea and all the preconceived notions of a love story. And the confusion goes beyond the color motifs. There is one crucial scene I've avoided really delving into, day 488, Tom's last conversation with Summer. By this point, Tom has discarded all his romance beliefs and has taken a bleak outlook on relationships. Then a new, now married version of Summer comes along, and it turns out she's adopted all of Tom's previous beliefs.
It was meant to be. And I just kept thinking, Tom was right.
No.
Yeah, I did.
This is a perspective reversal. When Tom expresses confusion at how she could go from never wanting to be anyone's girlfriend to now being someone's wife, she talks about how she met her husband, a simple encounter where he asked her what book she was reading. But Summer not only heavily romanticizes this, just like Tom would the elevator scene, she places a huge emphasis on fate and tells Tom that he's always been right about his beliefs.
What if I'd gone to the movies? What if I had gone somewhere else for lunch? What if I'd gotten there 10 minutes later? It was meant to be.
From here we go to the final scene where we meet Autumn. In these back-to-back scenes, it's as if everything we're supposed to learn has been discarded, because what exactly is the takeaway supposed to be here? For people in Tier 1, it just reinforces that Tom didn't really do anything wrong, and he is in fact living in a rom-com. It's just that the girl is Autumn instead of Summer, who is the villain. For people in Tiers 2 and 3 who think Tom is the villain because of his false romantic ideology that he projects onto the world, well, here is Summer validating that exact ideology, excusing him of wrongdoing because he was simply unlucky with the woman he chose to project it onto. But with Autumn, he would be right to do that. It's so confused. So either the film is contradicting itself or we're missing something, and I'm obviously going with the latter. There is a way to reconcile this, but it requires a much darker reading of the movie. The takeaway isn't that Summer is validating Tom's worldview, it's that she's been infected with his same disease, the contagion of romantic belief. Remember in Tier 1 when I talked about opposites attract? Where the trope as it works in romance is for the other character to shed themselves of their harshness and become more aligned with our wholesome protagonist? Well, 500 Days of Summer does exactly that. Summer took Tom's position on love, but because it's still a deconstruction of the love story, even here, her change is not supposed to be seen as wholesome. Her telling this story about meeting her one true love is meant to be dark. She's sick, just like Tom. I know this might sound too tinfoil hatty, but a simple place to start is with the timeline. 500 Days of Summer is a non-linear narrative and jumps so erratically between days that it's hard to get a proper grasp on just how things unfold. So let's break it down. Their relationship starts on, let's say, day 31 with their first kiss. Summer breaks up with him on day 290. That's an 8.5 month long relationship. Tom then grieves this relationship from day 290 to day 456, which is when he starts getting his act together in a 20-day montage. That's 6 months, which isn't an unreasonable time frame for getting over a heartbreak. It's during this montage that Summer gets married. Now, we don't know when Summer met her husband, but it had to have been post-breakup with Tom, because especially in the screenplay, when she explains how they met, she says, "Tom, it was meant to be, just like you said, and as it was happening, I knew it. I could feel it, sure as the sun, and I kept thinking to myself, holy shit, Tom was right." This meet cute of her own is happening post-Tom. It also just wouldn't make sense for her to have met him earlier with what we saw of Summer's emotional state in the final days of her relationship with Tom. Meaning that even if you push the timeline to the max, Summer met this stranger, dated, got engaged, and then got married in less than 6 months. It might even be as little as 3 months, we don't know, but it's definitely less than 6, shorter than the time period she was together with Tom. All that happened during this time frame Tom was processing their relationship. I don't think it's impossible to meet and marry someone that quickly and have a lovely lifelong relationship, but let's be real, in this day and age, it is extremely improbable. And to make matters worse, let's again go back to the wedding days where they reunite. Summer was in a relationship with this man who she apparently loves and claims she was destined to be with, yet she, by admission, deliberately held back this information through the many conversations she was having with Tom, through all the flirting and the slow dancing. It's only when she gets engaged soon after that suddenly the close flirtiness she had with Tom goes away and she maintains this appropriate distance with him that she should have had all along. To me, this doesn't indicate that Summer has found true love. If she had, then this true love would have come up in conversation, and she would have stopped herself from slow dancing with her ex and doing all of that. What Summer is doing on this bench scene is contextualizing her marriage with the same flawed ideology that Tom had. She performs the same rationalizations. She's telling herself a story that would fit in a perfect rom-com but doesn't match reality. And it's made even darker by the fact that Tom had learned to pull himself out of this mindset, and she's the one who pulled him back into it. And by the end, with Autumn, Tom goes back to his beliefs, because Summer laid the groundwork for him to believe in it again. It ends on a perspective alignment between our two characters, but in a way that's not supposed to be wholesome. These are the same screenwriters who wrote The Spectacular Now. Spoilers for the ending to that movie, but it's such a pay attention or you'll miss it kind of ending. Sutter has lost the girl Amy through his own faults.
Out of my car! Get the f out of my car! Get out! Get the f out of my car!
Oh my god, Sutter! Sorry, Sutter!
But he comes around and impulsively drives to Philadelphia to be with her. It's a grand gesture, a boombox moment. She loved him throughout the movie, so you think she would jump into his arms at the sight of him. But the final shot, which is brilliantly acted by Shailene Woodley, shows Amy's face going from shock to a forced smile that points to disappointment. Then the credits roll. Very much like The Graduate. This is the kind of ending these writers like, really twisting your ideas about how these stories should unfold. So now, given everything we know about what this ideology has done to Tom, what we know about how Summer navigates through her life, what we know about this timeline, and about how she interacted with Tom at the wedding, and also just taking what you know about love and relationships in general, genuinely ask yourself what is more likely, that destiny exists and Summer found the one because of it, or that she's smack dab in the middle of a relationship that's still in its honeymoon phase, one which won't last forever, might not even last very long at all, because life doesn't usually play out through the standardized, romanticized beats of a love story. So back to the color motif. What purpose does it serve? It's to infect you as the viewer. The final trick the movie is pulling, the constant visual misalignment with Summer, only for him to be perfectly aligned with Autumn when she enters the picture, is deceptively weaponized to convince you to also be like Summer and Tom and take on this ideology, one that the movie has screamed at you is false. It's not a contradiction, it is playing with your head. 500 Days of Summer isn't telling us that love and romantic relationships are bad, but the narratives we are sold about how they work is deeply flawed, yet are so infectious we internalize them even when we know how to deconstruct it. Even when the pain of heartbreak has shattered that belief, it's so easy to become infected again. And that's why I view this in many ways as a sister movie to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, because that ending is saying the same, only it's not hiding under a disguise. The movie ends with Clementine telling Joel that even though he likes her, eventually their relationship will fall apart again. He will find things he doesn't like about her and she'll get bored and feel trapped with him. To which Joel responds with, okay.
You know, you will think of things, and I'll get bored with you and feel trapped because that's what happens with me.
Okay.
Okay.
These people have gone through the hell of heartbreak. Their minds are completely jumbled. They literally went through the effort of purging themselves of love, only to accept that they will try the relationship out again, despite knowing how it will end. The final shot is of them running on the beach, and the shot loops several times as the film fades to black, showing that they are doomed to repeat the cycle of falling in love, breaking each other's hearts, and erasing their memories only to fall back in love again. Love is this insane thing that's so easy to get wrapped up in, even when it's literally purged from your mind. All it takes is one encounter and you'll get wrapped up in it again. Romantic belief is a contagious disease, and by the end of the film, no matter where you land in this iceberg, we've been part of this transmission. I'll end the video with this deleted scene.
You know, I kind of like what Nietzsche said. There's always some madness in love, but there's also always some reason in madness. It was pretty smart. But then again, Nietzsche also went crazy from syphilis. So there's that.
Thanks for watching. Bye.